Well, thank you all for being here. And let me start by thanking the men and women of this department and the men and women of this city, our community leaders who have joined us here today. I'm Mayor Eric Garcetti, and it's been the honor of my life for the last 20 years to serve alongside my neighbors, to serve alongside the heroes that wear the badge of the Los Angeles Police Department, to be accompanied here today by our partners in law enforcement as well. But before we get started with kind of our general message, I want to start with a very specific one. News that I know many of you have already broke, that the suspect that has been arrested in the murder of Jacqueline Avant. Jackie Avant was a friend. I know we use this term a lot, but truly an angel in this city of angels. She and Clarence, Nicole, their daughter, I've known for many years and have seen and witnessed the way their generosity touched the lives and transformed the lives and even saved the lives of so many people in this city and in this country. And my thoughts continue to be with the Avant family today. And I also want to thank, even though we know this homicide occurred in our neighboring city in Beverly Hills, we really do have a seamless network, a seamless tapestry between law enforcement across jurisdictions. And I want to commend the officers, the brilliance that they put two and two together from our Hollywood division, which was my home station for so many years as a council member, who helped connect these dots and make this swift arrest. I think the chief will give you some detail. I've been briefed on as well of how that happened, but thank you for LAPD for playing an incredible role in this. We're here more broadly, too, to have some straightforward messages. One, about crime in general. Two, about the specific crimes that we're seeing of so-called smash and grab robberies that have occurred recently in Los Angeles and across our nation. And three, to give Angelenos a sense of the role that each one of them can play in protecting themselves. Because as always, public safety is a partnership led by and with the community. I understand how unsettling it can be to pick up the newspaper or to turn on the TV and to hear the descriptions or to watch the videos of incidents that we see both here in Los Angeles and around the country. Whether it's a group of criminals who swoop into a store to commit robbery in the middle of the busy holiday shopping season, whether it's somebody who follows someone home and in their driveway robs them. It's not something we've seen too often. It's such a bold and brazen crime. It kind of cuts to the heart of what we believe a city should be, a safe and welcoming city of belonging. Here in LA, in just over a week, there have been 11 incidents. But hear this, especially anybody who would seek to commit these crimes, we've made 14 arrests connected to those incidents also in this past week. Our officers, with the resources they need, are out there to get the bad guys, to prevent smash and grab robberies from happening in the first place, and to ensure Angelenos and businesses that we can make sure that they and their businesses are safe. LAPD has been addressing resources with the support of myself and our city council to work the overtime, to have the shifts, and to make sure the strategic deployment of officers and the detective work to get to those who are behind these rings as well. We have extended patrols, we have strategic places that we're at, but we also, and this is that third point I want to make, needs the public's help. So often these days we live on these devices. Maybe you're looking at it when you shouldn't in the car, or you're on a walk and checking the latest text. And what we used to do as human beings, to look around, be aware of our surroundings, maybe wonder why that car is following us. We need you to put those screens down. We need you to protect yourself and to be aware of what's around you. We're acting fast to stop this in its tracks, and already we're producing results. But we don't want this to take away or be a distraction from our number one priority, putting an end to violent crime in communities that are heavily impacted by it. This isn't just about those places where people shop. It isn't just about beloved people whose success makes them known to us, like Jackie Avant. It's in every zip code, no matter what the income of that zip code is, no matter what the ethnic makeup of that. We're making arrests all the time. And my message again to the bad guys is we will find you, we will arrest you, and we will prosecute you. I'm so glad to be here today with Chief Moore and with Christy Johnson, our exceptional Assistant Director in charge of the FBI's Los Angeles Field Office, who's also offering us help with this, as well as some of Los Angeles' business and community leaders, to reassure Angelenos that there's no cause for alarm, that this is still a 10-year safest decade probably of our lifetimes. I'm always careful when I say that because it means nothing if you are a member of the Avant family, if you're a member of a family that was attacked today. We never dismiss that. But we also don't want it to blow up where everybody thinks that suddenly we're seeing statistics way beyond what the actual numbers are. We want you to support your local businesses, especially after COVID-19. We want you to be out there shopping and know that you can do that safely. We will be out there to make sure that your family is safe, to make sure the places you love to shop are safe, and so that you can enjoy a holiday season that we have all hungered for after 2 years nearly of being at home. So let me turn it over now to Chief Moore. I'll come back to and say a few things in Spanish at the end. Well, maybe I'll just say it briefly. I always say it in the end, but for my friends in the Spanish media too. Buenos días y gracias por acompañarnos en el día de hoy. Estamos aquí para hablar sobre los robos recientes que han ocurrido en Los Ángeles, en nuestra ciudad, y otra ciudad por el país, desde San Francisco hasta Chicago. En estas situaciones, un grupo de delincuentes corren a una tienda para cometer un robo cuando se encuentran llenas. Quiero que todos en la ciudad sepan que usted y su propiedad se encuentran seguros, gracias a este departamento de policía, lo mejor en el país. Usted puede y debe hacer sus compras navideñas como lo haría normalmente. Puede sentirse seguro en el centro comercial porque lo están. Su ciudad y su departamento y nuestras parejas en la comunidad están investigando estos robos y los oficiales están trabajando duro para responder y prevenir estos crímenes. Tienes más de 14 personas que son los criminales en estos incidentes recientes y están en cárceles ahora. Este es nuestro mensaje. Sé seguro. Es importante para responder a estos incidentes y tenemos los recursos a proteger sus familias y sus tiendas. And with that, let me turn it over to Chief Moore, and we'll hear from a couple other speakers and answer your questions. Thank you. Just on a personal note, Chief Moore, for how quickly you have put those resources out there. Thanks to the City Council, too, for working with me to make sure those resources are in place. And thank you again to the men and women of the department that you represent, who are our true heroes. Chief? So,
thank you. Mayor Garcetti, thank you for being here today and for your remarks and for pointing out that community safety, public safety is a shared responsibility. And I want to thank every member of our business and stakeholder community here behind me. These men and women are here on their own time. They leave businesses and other obligations behind to stand here united with the senior staff of the LAPD, as well as with the director here for the Los Angeles office for the FBI, for the retailers here in Los Angeles, so that we communicate clearly, as the mayor has said, about the message today, which is a message of prevention, a message of not allowing or tolerating this type of bold and reckless actions of these burglaries and robberies, and that there are consequences for those individuals who are tempted to engage in this type of conduct. And lastly, to our public, that our shopping centers, our retailers, our city areas are safe and safe for you. And I know that because just as recently as last night, I was walking areas of this city and enjoyed seeing a vibrant holiday season, a season after a terrible pandemic and still in the midst of it, in which Angelenos are coming out, they're wishing to celebrate a festive time of year, and they see and they recognize our men and women that are standing there to help protect them. So I'm going to give you a bit of a storyline of how this overview of these events have unfolded, just here both locally as well as on a national context, our actions and steps forward, and the results that we've achieved, and then some closing remarks about tips and the path forward. So during early November of this year, there were several news reports of smash and grabs a flash mob type theft of commercial establishments throughout other parts of the country, cities such as Chicago, New York, and the Bay Area of California. It was not occurring here in Los Angeles. These crimes were characterized with multiple suspects working together in coordinated instances involving destruction of property, assault on store employees, and caravans of vehicles parking very close to high-end retail stores. From November 18th to the 28th, the city of Los Angeles had 11 of those types of crimes, involving similar MOs where groups of suspects working in tandem, they worked to steal from high-end clothing stores, often using weapons and physical force to overwhelm and intimidate store employees and other patrons. The 11 reported instances have resulted in 14 arrests so far, as the mayor indicated. Of the 11 instances, 6 occurred in the western portion of the city, Operations West Bureau. Deputy Chief Blake Chow is here representing those areas of the city. 4 occurred in Valley Bureau, the San Fernando Valley area. Deputy Chief Alan Hamilton is there, is the deputy chief in charge of those resources. And 1 occurred in South Bureau at a CVS store. Deputy Chief Regina Scott is here representing that area of the city. In the breakdown of these crimes, it was 4 robberies, 6 burglaries, and 1 grand theft. Striking in that small number of crimes was the amount of property that was stolen. $338,000 worth of property was stolen in those 11 across the course of those 11 instances, and more than $40,000 worth of property damage. In the 14 arrests that have been made, all the suspects taken into custody are out of custody, either as a result of 1 juvenile or the others as a result of bailing out or no bail, zero bail criteria. In the sequence of events beginning in early November, where I described it occurring in other parts of the state, I had conversations with Chief Bill Scott from San Francisco, with the Chief Superintendent in Chicago, Vermont Shea, the Commissioner in New York, to understand what were the dynamics and where and how was it occurring and what were their efforts. Unfortunately, that landed on our doorstep beginning the 18th of November, when the first incident occurred of a robbery at the Subi clothing store located in Wilshire Division on South La Brea. Their property loss was $10,000. The suspects involved in that incident are still outstanding. From the period of 19th to the 21st, California experienced a rash of these smash and grab types crimes in cities such as San Francisco, Walnut Creek, and Beverly Hills. You may remember having seen the mobs that were, particularly in the Bay Area, hitting these various stores. We paid close attention to those, and yet we were not seeing those activities here. That changed beginning the 21st of November when a burglary occurred at a cellular phone warehouse located in North Hollywood Division. There, the property loss was in excess of $100,000. 2 suspects were arrested in that case. On the 22nd, a grand theft occurred at the Nordstrom's at the Grove. It's a daytime incident where multiple suspects ran into the store, taking clothing and valued in excess of $9,000. Those individuals we're still looking to identify and arrest. On the 22nd, in the evening hours, this occurred in CVS in the 77th Division in the 5800 block of Vermont Avenue. A grab-and-run robbery occurred with multiple suspects. The value of property taken was in excess of $10,000. We have substantial leads on that case, and I'll not discuss that further, but I'm confident that we will make arrests in that based on information that we've developed from the on-scene investigation, forensic evidence, as well as the community's assistance. A few hours later, on the 23rd of November, a burglary occurred at the Nordstrom's, again at the Grove, in the Wilshire Division. Property loss in that incident, this was a widely broadcasted burglary of a window being smashed by multiple suspects fleeing in a caravan of vehicles, was in excess of $100,000. Officers that were in the area on patrol heard the occurrence and observed vehicles fleeing the location. And in an effort to stop one of the vehicles, a lengthy pursuit ensued that ended in South Los Angeles. There, 3 suspects were arrested and taken into custody. One was a juvenile, 2 others were adults. Inside the vehicle was a number of items that were taken from that Nordstrom's burglary. Now, in response to that incident, and upon seeing similar crimes in other cities, including Beverly Hills the night before, and other locations across the state, the department surged its uniform resources. We took added uniform officers that were typically on a day off and asked that they come in and work on strategic locations in the city at high-end retailers as an effort to deter these overnight burglary events. On the 24th of November, a robbery occurred at the Impossible Kick Shoes in Wilshire Division at the Beverly Center. This was a new hit at a different location. $23,000 in property taken. We are searching for those suspects as we are here today. On the 24th, also a robbery occurred at the Nordstrom's at the Topanga Division. Property loss there was $24,000. This again was a daytime occurrence. On the 26th, and this resulted in us changing our tactics, what was typically known as Black Friday, a robbery occurred again at the Subi clothing store on South La Brea. Property loss was $15,000. In that incident, a suspect was arrested and a filing is pending on that criminal charge. Later in that day, a burglary occurred at the Wasteland clothing store at Wilshire on Melrose. 3 individuals were arrested in that incident. These were results of having added resources deployed in these high shopping areas as a result of the holiday traffic. The city declared a tactical alert later that evening. That was a direct result of having seen 6 smash and grab type instances in a short period of time in a very small area. Additionally, we saw and heard about a smash and grab robbery that occurred at a Lakewood Home Depot store, where multiple individuals went into a store, into that Home Depot location, and stole sledgehammers and other items that we believe were purposed to continue this crime spree. On the 27th, a burglary occurred in North Hollywood Division at a Lululemon, and $31,000 was taken. And then that same location was hit the next day, where an additional $14,000 of material and property was taken. I'm happy to report that 5 suspects were arrested and are facing charges for those crimes. LAPD's response to these instances have been swift, and we're here today to reassure the public that we'll use all of our available resources to arrest individuals involved in these violent and dangerous crimes and bring them before the criminal justice system. We're pursuing all investigative leads as we seek to identify and arrest outstanding suspects. The rash of these smash and grab type crimes have placed community members and store employees in significant danger due to the violence that's associated with them. And as troubling is how traumatic this has been on the psyche, on the mentality of our retailers, on store employees, as well as the shopping public and the community at large. Just last night, I was walking through some retail areas, and we had a couple of officers that were with us. And as we walked by a store, I witnessed a couple of women working behind the counter, and they start ducking down and hiding behind the counter. And they were scared because they saw a group of police officers, and they thought something was going on in relationship to what's happened most recently. And while these are only 11 instances in a city of 4 million, a region of 10, the impact on the larger population cannot be understated, we can't allow it to be understated. The declaration of the tactical alert, the visible deployment of uniformed officers, and the allocation of more than 2,000 hours of additional overtime have provided us with the resources that I'm happy to report that at this early juncture has stemmed this practice. As of this last weekend, we've seen multiple instances in which we believe the actions of the added presence of both store security personnel as well as ourselves and a uniformed presence has deterred people from further victimizing stores and committing these acts. The LAPD is grateful for its law enforcement partners. We've worked collectively with Santa Monica PD on the night of Black Friday, where they saw a caravan of vehicles outside of the mall. And as they stepped out, security personnel stepped outside to identify them and they fled, they reached out to every law enforcement agency in this region through the JRIC to communicate that incident. I want to thank the Sheriff's Department that as the Lakewood event occurred, again, communication was swift and immediate that allowed all of us to lean forward and understand the incident and to take protective measures to ensure the public safety. Going forward, what we're asking the community members to do is to be watchful. And as the mayor indicated, get our heads out of our phones, to watch our surroundings and be mindful of the challenges that we face today. If you observe a smash and grab crime in progress, please call 911. Do not take action. Do not try to interrupt or interfere with the individual's actions. Observe from a safe distance. Provide information. Get law enforcement resources there. No one's life is worth a piece of property. Additionally, we know that there are community members that we believe know who's been involved in these instances. And you can report that anonymously through Crime Stoppers. You can report that by calling a police station, by talking with your senior lead. We're interested in understanding who's involved with this so we can stop further acts from occurring. We're also working closely with our commercial locations, our retailers, to mitigate these instances. And I'm happy to report that I've seen added security measures. I've seen them move property from the front of locations by securing it with more secure means, by ensuring their customer service is improved, and I believe that that's having a deterring effect. In closing, I want to thank again everyone behind me for your collective work together to keep this city safe. Whether it's Mayor Garcetti and our council and other elected officials, it's retail operators, it's business owners, it's community members. We all recognize that this is our Los Angeles and that we get to define the type of Los Angeles that we're willing to live with and that we want to live in. And I'm proud of the work that's been done here. It is a smaller part, though, of a larger challenge of safety in this city. And this is an example today that will protect every corner to the best of our ability. And I thank you for your attention. At this time, I'd like to introduce Christy Johnson, the Assistant Director in charge of the Los Angeles office of the FBI. Christy?
Chief. Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Mayor, for your partnership and leadership today on a very important day when we are faced with these challenges of ongoing violent crime in the city. As the Chief mentioned, my name is Christy Johnson. Good afternoon. I'm the Assistant Director in charge of the Los Angeles Field Office of the FBI. The FBI routinely supports our local law enforcement partners, and certainly always when it comes to violent crime and trying to combat this problem. We are certainly here supporting LAPD today and in the weeks in the past, and certainly going forward, to make sure that these so-called smash and grab robberies that are occurring in this area are curtailed. Businesses should not be afraid to operate in a way that is safe for the public. They should not be afraid to have their employees come to work every day and provide a service to the public. No one should be afraid to go shopping. This disturbing trend cannot continue, and we will do everything in our power to support these investigations and to restore safety for businesses, the employees, and the consumers. We have had success in prosecuting these types of crimes on the federal level in the past, here in Southern California and throughout the country. We will pursue federal charges if appropriate in these matters. We do want to hear, as the Chief mentioned, from the public. We need everybody in this fight with us. We are offering reward money for information that leads to arrests in these cases. So we do encourage you to contact the numbers that the Chief mentioned. I will reiterate, 1-877-ASK-LAPD. I do thank you for your time and attention, and wish everybody a safe time going forward at this very critical time when the leadership and the partnerships are most critical. Thank you. I would now like to introduce Banyan Hutter, the Director of Security at the Grove.
We brought that in just for you.
Perfect. I know, it's perfect timing. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Banyan Hutter. I'm the Senior Vice President of Security for Caruso. We're proud to be here today alongside our partners in law enforcement, unified in our commitment to public safety. As you've heard, our close partnership with LAPD, along with existing security measures that were already in place, led to the arrest of several suspects after the incident at the Grove, along with the recovery of stolen merchandise the other night. We take incidents like this very seriously. In addition to working closely with these officers, we have increased our security measures across our portfolio as further deterrents. These measures combined with environmental design, custom barriers, state-of-the-art technology, and training conducted with our partners to ensure we know how to respond and react to these types of incidents. These measures act only as a powerful mitigation tools, but also support the identification and apprehension of these criminals, as which you saw from this previous incident. The safety and well-being of our guests, tenants, and employees remains our top priority, and we will continue to partner and support our law enforcement officers with everything we can in every way possible. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
With that, happy to answer questions.
So let's talk about the merchandise. We're talking a lot of money here. Is this being resold somewhere else? Do we know anything about this?
So we do believe it's being resold, that it's being marketed, if you will, to unscrupulous buyers. The number of arrests that we've made in a number of those instances, the tags are still on the items. So the individuals that are stealing these are taking them in bulk and then taking them, we believe, to swap meets and to vendors that are willing to buy the merchandise at a discount and then sell it back in a gray market scenario. So what we ask the buying public also is not to feed that, not to be that individual that adds to these type of crimes. The chain of responsibility extends all the way, just as it does with counterfeit merchandise, to the buyer who's willing to pay a discounted rate to get a deal, but recognize that that deal is coming at a cost that could be a human life. The incident of a robbery that occurred at the Nordstroms in the San Fernando Valley in one of these instances is a perfect example. There, a security guard inside the store attempted to stop the individuals and was attacked by multiple suspects, including one with a bear spray. There's nothing that bear spray repeated instances against him. There's nothing to stop that incident from escalating to giving that man a heart attack or some other medical condition, and he'd be lost. Whoever would buy those purses that were stolen, then at a discount, has a responsibility for that person's injury. We've seen these also escalate what's typically known as an Estes robbery into murder, where the store owner or keeper will attempt to stop the individual and they'll be shot and killed. There have been armed individuals in these assaults in the past. So please don't feed it as a customer, and as an individual buying this material, recognize that we're debriefing our suspects and we're finding out where they're selling their material. We're finding out both by their remarks and statements, but also by search warrants on their cell phones and other evidencary track, digital track that they leave behind. So behind us, you'll see there's a list of these 11 instances, and it details the suspects involved, those that arrests have been made, and those that have not. We can identify the deputy chiefs for the areas of the city. They can provide you with the community bulletins of the outstanding suspects that we're still looking for and working on. The last item, as far as the reward monies go, I believe we're starting at $10,000.
We'll be offering between $1,000 and $10,000, depending on the value of the information.
I also want to lastly bring up Crime Stoppers. Crime Stoppers is an anonymous online, you can call LAPD and also will connect you to them. They'll provide you with a control number. You provide the information. We follow up if we make an arrest, and as we make arrests, reward monies are then routed back to you anonymously, so that you do not have to identify yourself in order to be a contributor to identify those persons responsible.
Chief, you mentioned that the suspects who were arrested had been reasons, but many times people on the street, they're concerned that these are facing certain consequences for these actions. So what is your message to the public in that regard, given that these people are back on the street?
So we are concerned, and I think the entire criminal justice system, as it moves through this pandemic, we have to continue to evolve. Zero bail as a provision of safety measures for COVID established that you could be arrested for a crime such as burglary, serious felony, a person coming into your home or business during hours of darkness or otherwise, and that's a zero bail, meaning that we book and process, identify you, and then your arraignment date is 3 to 4 months from now. Historically, there has been an underlying standard bail, but in an effort to downsize the risk of COVID to those that are in custody, the court system installed this zero bail system as a means of safeguard. But as we evolve through this, there's elements of the criminal elements that are recognizing that condition and are capitalizing on it. Remember, the vast majority of crime is committed by relatively few people. And when the few people are constantly gaming the system to understand its weaknesses. And while we always look to rehabilitate and bring people back into society in a successful manner, there are others that looked upon to prey upon society. And the system needs to protect all of communities from those individuals. And I think that today we bring some attention to this to say that the Nordstrom's event, where the window smash occurred and the caravan of cars fled and a lengthy and dangerous pursuit terminated, and the recovery of 3 arrests, the suspects included 2 adults with criminal histories and a 0 bail, poses challenges when their next court appearance is in March.
Say something on that.
Please.
Let me just say it more explicitly, too. We need the help of our criminal justice system, of our judges, of our jailers. There are people who need to be behind bars, and they need to be there. How many times does the same person, have to steal a car 3, 4, 5 times after being released before we realize we have opened up a lot of the city because we're in a better place with COVID? We should be able to also open up our jails, and we should be able to have judges that put people behind those bars as well. I haven't spoken specific district attorney. Part of it's the district attorney, but much of it is coming from the judicial system itself, not the prosecutors. Can I come back to that? We'll see if there's. I'm going to see if there's anything else on this first, and I'll be happy to talk to you. And it's good to see you, by the way, Hal. I hope you're doing okay. Anything else?
How are the crimes with large numbers being organized, like with large numbers of suspects? Social media, is it gang related? Is there any information on that?
So the question was, how are these being orchestrated or organized? Frankly, the phones today, social media, the network of people that text and stream just as you do, they organize themselves in that fashion, and that's how they're communicating. They send scouts out looking for police, looking for security officers, looking to understand where those targets that are vulnerable. They communicate that to others, and then they descend on a location. And so this is done, in utilizing modern tools today. The underlying group so far, the connectivity, has been primarily what we've found is from a smaller neighborhoods in South Los Angeles, in the smash and grab area. The arena has been relatively a tight group of individuals that have some association, at least in location, to each other. Unlike the follow home and follow off bandits, which that series appears to be more of a popular MO than a group of people that are known to each other.
Are you saying there's a connection among the incidents?
And when we look at the arrestees, the briefing I have had is that their involvement in criminal activity in the past has identified them also in street gang activity that identifies some connectivity one to another. Not all of them, but a portion of them. No, I'm not saying that this is a gang or a group that all were part of the same membership. What I'm saying is that they came from the same neighborhoods to this point. Now, we still have outstanding suspects. We have individuals we haven't identified, that we haven't captured. So it could expand as it did in other parts of the country, that it was just seen as an opportunity, and opportunists came and were drawn to these locations, and they really had no network amongst each other. That's what. So this is still an evolving understanding of the makeup of these individuals. But we want to draw attention to the fact that regardless of anyone who's tempted to get into this work, whether you know someone or not, is that the consequences will be severe, and that they are lasting. They're lasting in regards to your future, because these are serious charges. And our intention is, and to the point of meeting with DA Gascon, tomorrow morning I meet with them on, just as we do regularly. And I know in prior conversations with this DA that his support of holding chronic offenders accountable is there. And we will look to the filing decisions that I'm sure will demonstrate that as well.
Until that changes, though, within the penalty, how does that message get across? Because it seems like they can commit these felonies, and there aren't serious consequences.
Well, yeah, this is an emerging area. So let me say that, let's not make light of the fact that they are still going to face criminal prosecution and charges. And there may be, and I do think that there's a challenge with people who may not worry about things that are 3 or 4 months from now because their very existence is at a much cruder fashion. So there's a value of keeping them from the community because they haven't been deterred from committing further acts. The bigger problem we have is the sense that they give others that there's not that consequence. And that's one of the purposes of today, is to demonstrate that there are consequences and that there will be lasting consequences upon individuals. And please do not get tempted into a mob or idea of a crowdsourcing where this becomes a popular MO because they feel like it's profitable, it has low risks, that they're going to be able to do this without being captured or found. That quite the contrary. And so that I just want to leave at that. But again, we as the mayor indicated, we all look to an evolving criminal justice system, as it has for decades. And in the current safeguards for COVID, though, we're challenging, it needs to change. We track every 2 weeks arrests in the city for zero bail and what happens with people being rearrested. Auto theft is up for the first time. This is no secret. I've said this frequently. Auto theft is up in this city for the first time in 2020 after a decade of decreases. It's up this year again. Our arrests are up more than 30%. And you ask why? It's because auto theft, in my view, it's because auto theft is zero bail offense. Now, we've asked for enhancements, which can be done, and we've seen courts then, at arraignment, again, make it a zero bail. We know people are stealing GMCs, Yukons, easily late model Hondas that can be overcome relatively simple. The people stealing them are the chronic offenders. And so that's where the criminal justice system needs to make those adjustments. And it will. But in the interim, people should not look at those weaknesses as long-lasting or embedded in cement. I do believe that they'll respond to this evolving challenge for public safety.
Describing major incidents with many people are individual incidents of shoplifting with one person. Is that up as well?
In some portions of the city, a shoplift that escalates into a robbery by force or fear has increased, and where those areas, the areas in which it's increasing are those areas that we have seen individuals that are experiencing homelessness, that have seen a lack of resources or alternatives, and have resorted to these type of what escalates into a robbery. And that's where we're working again with our merchants to understand for retailers how to change that. Lastly, organized theft is a growing issue, and I'm happy to say that I'm also seeing retailers changing the means in which they shelve and merchandise their properties so to deter those that would wish to come and steal items of expensive value, machinery and so forth, only to resell on the gray market.
Chief Mayor, you guys both mentioned consequences and your warning to the criminals. What is your level of confidence that this will be a fiasco? And I understand you both are supposed to meet with me soon. Your level of confidence.
Yeah, I don't know of a meeting coming up, but I'm always happy to communicate with him. Look, it is, I don't think, the responsibility of any one prosecutor, any one police officer, any one judge. It is our collective responsibilities to make sure that we do two things. One is that we have a system where there are consequences, and two, that we don't just warehouse people forever without any rehabilitation. For me personally, that's where I live, in between that. There shouldn't be crimes that don't have consequences, but at the same time, for us to put people away for 20, 30 years on our dime without any rehabilitation is also stupid as well. So I expect, and I would hope that each of our line prosecutors, I'm the son of a, as you know, prosecutor, would take these things seriously, would look at consequences, and that we would look at a jail system that actually helped people emerge from that, and if they don't, that they pay the price, that they spend time.
Mr. Mayor, obviously volumes are down. Everything's down except for auto theft. Is that wrong?
It's violent crime's up about 3.5% right now. Sorry, overall Part 1 crime is up about 3.5%. Yeah.
As you guys mentioned, it's just a relatively small number of crimes.
Yep.
Are you sort of more concerned about the psyche of this city and sort of that,
Great question.
The actual number is the
Yep.
big picture?
Well, I think you caught the nuance of my message, which is it's just such a difficult thing to communicate. I think whether you're a chief of police or a mayor, to tell people not to be overly worried, but to be aware and to be sympathetic for somebody who's been the victim of a crime. I had to contain all three of those. The Avant family, is devastated. And there's other families in this city, as we look at the number of homicides that have happened, that will never be reported on because it's not somebody as famous, who are devastated. So I never in any way downplay that. At the same time, sometimes you watch the coverage and you'd think that we have suddenly nothing but chaos on our streets. And the men and women of this department are doing an amazing job, as are a lot of other community protectors, to keep crime down below what we might expect the rise to be. Homicides, yes, you're right. We've seen this across the country. Here in Los Angeles, remember it was almost double the rate earlier this year, and thanks to these police officers, about half of the increase. Now it's still an increase, but more about 14% instead of the 30+% I think that we're at. So that's headed in the right direction, but that's a phenomenon, something. Obviously, people being indoors, being cooped up, shots fired, and homicides are up. But yes, part of the worry is don't play into this more than it is. Know that we have people out there. Live your life. Don't let those, who would sow fear make you more scared than you should be. So it is both messages, absolutely.
I could ask the flip of that. 18 months ago, city leaders decided to reduce hiring in the LAPD. And, where we're at right now is this week-ish is, you're projecting the greatest number of homicides since about 2008, I think, for the year, give or take. You have a 50% increase, I think, in shooting victims over 2 years. And you got this stuff going on. And, when you reduce that spending, you lost hundreds of officers, probably 600 officers. I guess I'm wondering, was that decision a mistake?
No, I think that if you look around the country, you see departments that didn't lose a single person who are facing the same statistics. I think it's been, unfortunately, too sloppy of a connection that doesn't bear out in the statistics. Where people have actually added officers, you see larger increase in homicides in some of those places. I've always said don't fixate just on the number of people in the force, fixate on the number of people we can deploy. This is a tough time. People are out because of COVID. We may lose some more people because of the vaccine, but it's one or the other, right? If we don't get vaccinated, we lose people because they're out sick. Hopefully with folks vaccinated, and I want to thank the chief because we're nearly at 80%. So also contrary to the narrative we might hear, that means 4 out of 5 of the men and women of this police department are vaccinated now. We need to make sure this department had no bigger cut than any other department. We're working hard to increase as we got new resources, the resources here. And as I said in my State of the City, if you're looking to defund the police, this is the wrong mayor. We're adding resources. I'm unapologetic about that. But during the pandemic, we had to reduce for every single department. And this department was not hit harder than any other department in this city.
I'd also be interested in hearing the chief whether he thinks it was a mistake. It's going from 10,000 to about 9,400.
Well, I deal with moving forward. What the city faced 18 months ago was a 95% reduction in services and in revenue. How it was going to fund itself, and we all have heard the realignment and finding alternatives. And there's no one in law enforcement that doesn't want that. So now people want to look for a blame. They want to look for a scapegoat, and I'm not in that conversation. The conversation I'm in is I'm thankful for a commission that just approved a budget proposal for next year that builds on the increases that this mayor and our city council built this year. We're adding 250 additional positions back in our sworn positions this current year, hiring more officers, 740 officers this year. We've not hired that many officers in more than a decade. And the proposal for next year is to add and restore an additional 100 sworn personnel plus additional civilians. So we're back into a growth of this organization, and so that it is available, has time and energy to build trust. It's not just chasing crime. As we talk about this, it's about building trusting relationships, time for officers to have engagements with the public that are meaningful and that have a purpose that shows that we can be relied upon to ensure the safety of communities as we share all this together. So what I'd like to do is unless there's any other...
And Hal, I'll come talk to you separately, yeah.
And I think there's someone who's going to talk it differently. Yep.
Okay, so, well, I'm going to let these folks go. If there's nothing else on the crime stuff, I'll come talk to you, Hal, and anybody else who wants to talk to me about stuff, okay? Thank you all for being here. Thank you again to members of the public, and thank you to the department for their great work. Appreciate it. Have a good evening.